Today, we are going to peel back the curtain on one of the most urgent battles in modern medicine, the fight against ALS. But we're not just looking at the science here, we're following the money. We're going to break down the incredibly complex financial world behind the search for a cure, from the staggering cost of the disease itself, all the way to the massive investments that are fueling our hope for a breakthrough. So, let's dive in. Let's just start with a number. $2 million. Just let that sink in for a second. What does a number like that even represent? I mean, it's not the cost of some fancy research lab or a new drug. No, it's much more personal than that. That's right, $2 million is the estimated lifetime cost for a single person diagnosed with ALS. Think about that. It's a figure that captures so much more than just medical bills. It's a lifetime of care, it's lost income, and it's profound, life-altering changes for an entire family. This is really our starting point for understanding the immense economic stakes of this devastating disease. And that cost, for just one person, well, it scales up, and it scales up dramatically. So in this first part of our explainer, we're going to look at that total financial weight, the multi-billion-dollar burden that makes finding a cure not just a medical imperative, but a flat-out economic one too. So if we zoom out from that one family, we land on this number, over $10 billion. And get this, that's the estimated annual global economic burden of ALS. It's a measure of lost productivity, the immense strain on healthcare systems all around the world. It's a massive, massive problem that researchers and investors are now in a race to solve. Now, what's really interesting is how that $10 billion actually breaks down. You see, about 60% of it comes from what we call direct medical costs. You know, the things you'd expect, like hospital stays and equipment. But a huge chunk, a full 40%, comes from indirect costs. These are the ones that are often hidden, but they can be just as devastating for families. And let's look at what that means in real terms, because the numbers are just crushing. A ventilator can cost up to $100,000 a year. Modifying a home just to make it accessible can be a $50,000 hit right up front. And that's before we even touch the indirect costs. The patient often has to leave their job right in their prime earning years. That's maybe $100,000 in lost income year after year. And on top of that, family members often have to become full-time caregivers, putting in 20, 30, even more hours of unpaid care every single week. These numbers just pile up with brutal speed. So, okay, with a problem this big, who is stepping up to solve it? I mean, where does the money to actually fight ALS come from? Well, the answer is a really fascinating mix of public commitment and some very ambitious private investment. All right, so first, you have the backbone of U.S. research funding, the government, specifically the National Institutes of Health, or NIH. Their funding request for ALS research is $180 million. This is the study foundational capital, the money that supports those long-term clinical trials and core scientific discovery, year in and year out. Now, here's another key public source you might not expect, the Department of Defense. They contribute $40 million annually, and the reason for that is pretty stark. Studies have shown that military veterans are diagnosed with ALS at a significantly higher rate than the general population, making this a critical mission for the defense community. But public funding is only part of the story. Another $200 million flows in from the private sector. We're talking philanthropy and venture capital. This is the high-risk, high-reward money. It's the cash that can move faster, funding innovative startups and pushing the boundaries of science into really cutting-edge areas like gene therapy. Okay, so let's put all that funding into perspective. When you add it all up, the total global research investment is around $1 billion a year. And this is where the core economic argument really comes into focus. We are using a $1 billion annual investment to try and solve a $10 billion annual problem. When you look at it that way, this research funding isn't really an expense at all, is it? It's a strategic investment. But here's the catch. Turning that $1 billion into an effective treatment that actually helps people, well, that's an incredibly long and difficult journey. Let's dig into the high price of progress and why getting a drug from a simple lab idea into a patient's hands is one of the most expensive and uncertain ventures in the entire world. This right here is often called the drug development gauntlet, and you can see why. The costs don't just add up, they explode. A project that starts with maybe a few million in basic research can swell to a $200 million phase 3 trial. And the toughest part? About 95% of potential therapies will fail somewhere along this path. It's known as the Valley of Death, where so many promising ideas die because of a lack of funding or just a failed trial. So to fight these insane costs and delays, scientists are getting clever. They're innovating the research process itself. A key example is something called the platform trial. So instead of testing just one drug at a time, this model tests multiple treatments at once, all using a shared control group. And this is a total game changer. It can slash research costs by up to 30%, and maybe more importantly, it gets us answers much, much faster. Which brings us to the ultimate question, right? With such high costs and such a high rate of failure, is this massive investment actually worth it? To answer that, we really need to look at the return on investment, not just for the companies making the drugs, but for all of us, for society. You can measure the return in two very different ways. On one hand, for a pharmaceutical company, the focus is profit. A successful drug in this space can return 10 to 15 times its investment. But for society, the return is measured in public good. A therapy that just delays the disease can save up to $100,000 per patient per year. It reduces the burden on our whole healthcare system, and it turns out it actually fuels the economy. And the data on that societal return is just stunning. Study after study shows that every single dollar the NIH invests in medical research generates somewhere between $7 and $10 in economic output. This is such a crucial takeaway. Public research funding isn't just about finding cures. It's a powerful economic engine that benefits absolutely everyone. So where is all of this heading? Let's pivot and take a look at the future and see what the next decade might hold for the fight against ALS. Because honestly, the trends are genuinely optimistic. Just look at these projections. They are incredibly promising. By 2030, annual research funding is expected to double to $2 billion. At the exact same time, innovations like AI and these platform trials we talked about are projected to cut R&D costs by up to 30%. So what does that mean? It means not only more money, but every single dollar will go further and be more effective than ever before. And this might be the most hopeful number of all, 16. Right now, there are 16 different companies that have promising ALS drug candidates in the development pipeline. That level of activity is completely unprecedented, and experts believe it could lead to 2, maybe even 3 new drug approvals by 2030. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. The economics of ALS. It's a complex web, right? Staggering costs, massive investments. But when you really stop and consider that a single breakthrough could not only transform countless lives, but also save society billions of dollars in the long run, it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. What is the right price for hope?